Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My dad is terminally ill. He was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's a decade ago, but it was slow to progress at first, and he got 6 decent years post-diagnosis. The last 4 have been different, and he went downhill and required more care at the worst possible time, because nobody could visit him in the nursing facility when he first went in. My mom, my siblings, and I did many Zoom calls with him, and I would check in daily. But not seeing him for months was hard. In that time, my mom started to feel like a widow, and she told me she came to terms with her marriage ending through death, even though his body is still here. My dad is still hanging on, but he doesn't remember us and has so many health problems. We're not sure how long he realistically has. When his heart gives out, most likely. It's awful. I feel so alone sometimes with missing my dad. My siblings, from Dad's first marriage, and I have an okay relationship, but not as close, and they got many more years with Dad. I was only 13 when Dad got sick. They were late 20s and early 30s. My mom has just moved on. She has a boyfriend now of 11 or 12 months. She plans to marry him when the body is in the ground, to quote her. She no longer goes to visit Dad, and I have taken over almost full responsibility for his care with my siblings chipping in occasionally. I'm expecting my first child now, and my mom is trying to move us both on in the way that works best for her. She's asked me to spend more time with her boyfriend and to include him in my life more. I explained to her why I wasn't ready for that. She told me it's time because, with a baby on the way, she wants him to be called Grandpa, because she'll marry him one day. She also told me his own children don't want to speak to him because he was in her shoes and they judged him for dating while their mother was alive and judged him for seeming to grieve more for the woman he was dating at the time, who suddenly died, than he did for their mother. She told me he will never get to know his biological grandkids and he deserves to be a grandfather to mine. She also wants him to be included in my delivery. A few years ago, when Dad wasn't as bad as he is now, I broke down and told Mom when I had kids, I would need her to be there because I wouldn't have Dad anymore when I was ready, and she assured me she would be there. But I don't want her in the room anymore, and I told her this. But she still wants them, as new grandparents, to be there. When I told her he's not going to be called Grandpa, and he won't be in the delivery room, she accused me of punishing her for being happy. She told me I am clinging to a body that isn't my dad anymore and caring for a man who died years ago than I am for my mom who is still here and has needs. I told her I had accepted she has needs, but it doesn't mean I can move forward in the same way she does. She called me a selfish little brat and said I'm just as bad as her boyfriend's kids. Am I the a-hole? What is it today with people wanting to be in the delivery room? Why in the world would he want to be in there? Births are not lovely. And why would he want to be in OP's delivery room at all? It's for the closest people only, and he's a stranger to OP. OP's mother might be ready to move on, but that doesn't mean OP is or has to. She can marry him, but that doesn't make him OP's stepdad, unless the relationship between them develops. His relationship with his own kids doesn't mean OP has to be guilted into being family with him. And now let's hear the community's opinion. JRM1102 says, "Not the a-hole. It's your choice who is in the delivery room. Your mother may have moved on, but that doesn't mean you have to. Calling him Grandpa is a bit much, but the delivery room is a whole extra level of insanity." EV135 says, "Not the a-hole. You haven't moved on yet since he is still technically alive. I don't judge your mom for dating. Companionship is important, but she shouldn't be pressuring you. The grandpa thing needs to be earned, not assumed. The delivery room is just plain wrong. You barely know him." Special Lychee says, "Not the a-hole. She called me a selfish little brat and said I'm just as bad as her boyfriend's kids. If everyone has a problem with you moving on to the next relationship while your partner is still alive, maybe the problem is you moving on to the next relationship while your partner is still alive, and not just your children being brats. Does she expect to have your boyfriend over for family holidays while your dad is still alive too? Will he support her at his funeral? And how is she going to narrate that one? We are here to say goodbye to my husband, But I'm so happy my new boyfriend is here to support me. In my grief for the legal husband I said goodbye to the moment he became seriously ill. The in sickness and in health, till death do us part, is not when you decide your partner is as good as dead. It's great she found happiness, but you don't owe it to her boyfriend to put on a song and dance, to make up for his own children also not being okay with welcoming a new girlfriend before their own mother was dead. Backstory. My parents do not get along. They divorced when I was still in the womb, and my dad married the woman he's still with now and had 5 more children, my half-siblings. He wasn't in my life for 22 years. I'm 23 now, for reference. And we only just began to build a quasi-relationship last year, when one of my siblings did a DNA test, matching with me on the site, and thus proving that we are, in fact, related. He had apparently always insisted that my mom was a liar, that I wasn't his kid, that my mom had tried to baby trap him, and that all of his efforts to get me DNA tested, to spend time with me, were blocked by her. I've accepted that I'll never truly know the full story because both of my parents have different versions, but it is what it is. All of that aside, I, 23 female, am graduating at university soon, master's degree. Obviously, my mom is first on the list when it comes to who's coming. She is my life and soul. She raised me on her own and went above and beyond for me. There's no way she isn't attending on such a major day for me. I also thought that since I'm now getting to know my dad, it would be nice for him to share this moment too, along with my siblings as well. So I brought it up during dinner a few nights ago, and while my siblings expressed interest in attending, my dad's first reaction was to say, verbatim, "Oof, your mother will be there, won't she?" in a tone that really rubbed me the wrong way. I said, yeah, she will be. But later on I confronted him properly. I asked him what he meant by what he said earlier, and he told me that he can't be anywhere that my mom is because his wife will get jealous and is insecure, and that she gets physically sick when she's jealous, and he doesn't want to put her in harm's way. So I said something along the lines of, well, my mom is definitely and rightfully going to be there because she's my mom and it's a very important day for me. If that's such a big problem for you, please don't come at all. Some of the people I've spoken to in my family have said that I was harsh and didn't hear him out fully, that he never said he didn't want to come, and that I probably don't know the full story. That he's my dad, and he didn't get to be there for many important milestones, so it's really quite cruel of me to tell him not to come to this one. I'm always being told that I'm missing a lot of context when it comes to my parents' full story, and yet no one wants to tell me that context. My aunt suggested I compromise and just find a way to make sure my mom and dad's paths don't cross on the day. But I don't want to have to do that. I refuse to walk on eggshells on a day that's supposed to be happy for me, to borderline babysit my dad just to make sure he doesn't run into my mother and subsequently make his wife jealous. That's not my problem. Am I the a-hole? Actions speak louder than words. He did nothing to provide for OP for all those years. His actions speak volumes. I don't believe for 1 minute he begged her to get a DNA test, and OP's mom refused. He could have also pursued legal avenues. He wanted to skip out on all responsibility was what it was. He sounds awful and self-centered. Between Weeb and Otaku says, not the a-hole. Your dad didn't miss out on many important milestones. He ran directly away from them. What's cruel here is abandoning your kid, insisting it isn't yours, talking years of crap about her mom, and then prioritizing your new wife when asked to actually be involved in your kid's life. The people saying you don't know the full context are just not helping. Either they tell you that context, or they keep their mouths shut. Automatic Mismatch says, not the a-hole. You're right, it's your day, and you shouldn't have to walk on eggshells to make other people happy. Plus, if your dad's wife gets so jealous at the idea of your dad being in the same room as an ex, she needs therapy to work out her issues. Highly Improbable 42 says, father is a title earned, and he has done nothing to earn it. He had 23 years to prove he was dad-worthy, and spent 22 of those years refuting he was your genetic donor at all. Not the a-hole to uninvite him, and you would not be the a-hole to cease a relationship with him further. In the past year, you've gotten to know who he is. He won't change, and he won't ever prioritize your feelings. So the only sure outcome of involving him in your life will be your own hurt. You can still have a relationship with your siblings without involving your donor, if they can respect that boundary. I, 24 female, came home at 3 a.m. from a work trip a few days ago. I was jet-lagged, only wanted to see my wife, 25 female, and go to sleep. I was surprised to see that my mother-in-law, 48 female, was also waiting with my wife for my arrival at our living room. The second I walk in, my mother-in-law starts complaining about how I was supposed to arrive at 2 a.m., how she has been up for 1 hour more than she thought she would, etc. I had sent a message to my wife that my flight was delayed, but my mother-in-law thought that I should have sent her a message as well, even though I didn't know she would also be waiting for me. My wife calmed her down, and I told them that I was going to sleep. That was apparently another thing for my mother-in-law to start complaining. She thought that I needed to empty my suitcase before I go to sleep. My wife stood up for me and told her mother that I don't need to empty it right now, and I can do it in the morning when I wake up. They argued for a little while, but finally I got my permission to go to sleep from my mother-in-law. At this point, I need to say that I left my suitcase closed and it was out of the way, standing near a wall. Fast forward to next morning, when my wife and I woke up to a scream from my mother-in-law. Both of us got straight up from bed and went to see what happened. My mother-in-law stood horrified in the middle of our living room, and she was looking at my suitcase, which was now laying open on the floor. My wife asked what happened, and my mother-in-law responded that she had accidentally spilled coffee in my suitcase because I had left it laying open on the floor. My wife and I both knew she was lying because I did not leave the suitcase like that. I looked at my suitcase and immediately realized that the amount of coffee in my suitcase didn't match the size of the cup my mother-in-law was holding, because the cup was small and there was lots of coffee in the suitcase. I started crying because everything that I had in the suitcase was ruined. My mother-in-law started saying I was overreacting and I shouldn't have left my suitcase laying around like that. She said I was an a-hole because I blamed her for what happened. At this point, my wife kicked her mother out and comforted me. Now that a few days have passed, I've started thinking that maybe I overreacted, and it really was my fault that my mother-in-law spilled the coffee in the suitcase. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The suitcase was zipped up and closed and standing on its end. To get it to how mother-in-law had it, she would have had to lay it down, unzip it, open it up, and then go into the kitchen, make the coffee, and then pour it in. Do you hear how unhinged those steps sound? At any point, she could have stopped and asked herself, "What the duck am I doing?" She did not. You are definitely not the a-hole here. Not the a-hole. She's literally damaged your property. I'd send her a lovely little bill, saying, whilst you're sure it was an accident, of course you expect her to replace the items and that you're perfectly happy with cash. Not the a-hole. Mother-in-law has become a smother-in-law. It's your home. You can go to bed when you want. Leave your stuff wherever you want. And she has to respect you and your house and your belongings and your decisions because you are an adult and don't need a mother to tell you what to do anymore. And if she can't treat you like the quarter-century human you are, then she can keep her half-century butt at her own home. My younger sister is finally getting married after many virus-related delays in a mini-moni that involves about 9 people, including the officiant and photographer. They're planning on having a much larger wedding in a couple years when international travel is easier. When she texted me the aesthetic she was going for a few weeks ago, I realized a very beautiful, expensive necklace I inherited from our grandma would go great with her dress, so I offered to let her wear it. My exact phrase was, "You could wear it if you want it." She was excited about the idea and said she'd try it on and see. Fast forward to today, and she's visiting my place. I got out the necklace and showed it to her, and I again commented how lovely it was and how I was obsessed with it. She agreed and asked if I didn't want to eventually wear it at my wedding then. I shrugged and said I still could, and it didn't bother me that she'd wear it first. She got really angry then and said that if she wore it at her wedding, the necklace would then be hers. I have to admit, I was really taken aback and didn't know what to say. I think I said something like, "Oh, I thought you were just borrowing it." And she told me that it was insane I'd tell her she could wear the necklace at her wedding and not give it to her to keep. I genuinely didn't know what to do. I adore the necklace and was looking forward to owning it and wearing it for years to come. But was it a faux pas to offer to let her wear it without giving it to her? I want her to be happy on her big day, but this is literally the only necklace I have from our grandma. Am I the a-hole Reddit? Edit. So my sister was searching Reddit last night to prove she was right about borrowed jewelry and instead found this post. To be clear, I adore my sister and we have a very strong relationship. She made an honest mistake and really thought she was right and wasn't trying to gaslight or manipulate me. She's a wonderful human who behaved crappily in a moment of stress, like we all do sometimes, and has apologized and we've made up. I do hope she'll borrow the necklace for her wedding day. Not the a-hole. Something borrowed is literally part of the tradition. Not the a-hole. Be firm about this. You will look back as you prep for your wedding day and remember when you wished you had stood your ground. It's yours. Don't let something obviously so precious to you be guilted out of your hands. Your sister is delusional and ridiculous. Not the a-hole, but you definitely should rescind the offer. You're never going to get it back if you lend it to her now. So, my husband, 39 male, is friends and co-workers with both people. He's kept the super awkward friendship with, we'll call him Frank, 42 male, by not talking about the situation. The situation is Frank hooked up with 40 female, Marlene, and she ended up pregnant. Now he's taken her to court to try and get out of child support. His side being that she told him she couldn't get pregnant after he said he didn't want kids. Husband has tried to stay neutral on both sides by not talking about it to either side. But at home it hurts him, because we've been trying for a kid for 3 years and have been working through some fertility issues. And his friend gets someone pregnant like it's nothing, and then wants nothing to do with it. So that really pisses me off. So Frank ended up being at the same ball game as us. Hubby said he wants to come hang out. I said I wasn't really interested in hanging out with a person like that. One thing led to another, and we're hanging out together. Ultimately, after the game is over and we're all BSing, I end up calling him out for it being his responsibility as an adult. He ends the conversation by saying he has to pay this whole time. I walked away, but had to go back and defend my husband, but he wants to hear none of that. Truth hurts. Then Frank's side piece gets involved, and we have to leave before I get us kicked out. Am I the a-hole for even talking about it? Maybe different place, different time, but I had no intention of seeing him again. Also, he brought it up because he said we're all family. I said no. He asked why. I said you know why. The rest is history. I'm gonna lean towards everyone sucks here. Whether the pregnant woman lied about her supposed infertility or not, the friend did get her pregnant, and so he ought to step up to the plate. However, the situation is really none of your concern, regardless if you know about it. And honestly, it sounds like some of your feelings are stemming from jealousy, resentment, because of your own fertility issues. And while I do sympathize with you on that, it's not the friend's fault that you and your husband are having these difficulties. It wasn't your place to speak on the situation. Your fertility issues aren't his fault or his problem. A very salty you're the a-hole. Truth hurts. She told him she couldn't get pregnant after he said he didn't want kids. If this is the truth, then she lied to him and baby-trapped him. He didn't want the kid. He didn't think she could have kids. She has the kid and tries to take him to the cleaners for child support. You're letting your own fertility issues cloud your judgment about this situation. You're the a-hole.